My name is Jean Marie Herron. I'm a certified professional organizer and the business development manager for the Junk Luggers. My mission is to improve the quality of people's lives through the decluttering of their homes and offices in an eco-friendly and non-judgmental way. If you'd like to see more of these videos, simply click the subscribe button. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Love Your Garden Organization, and not just for spring, because whatever grows outside is, there all year long, and sometimes we have to make plans for it. So for those of you who are joining us for the very first time, welcome to our monthly Lunch and Learn, which is always on Zoom. It's always the third Wednesday of the month, and it goes from 12:30 to 1 p.m. My name is Jean Marie Herron, and I'm a certified professional organizer, as well as the business development manager for a wonderful eco-friendly furniture and junk removal company called the Junk Luggers. If you are outside of northern New Jersey and you're somewhere across the country, welcome, but we do only service northern New Jersey and lower Hudson Valley. So today we're going to talk about gardening. So I love this question, how does our garden grow? Because, when you see this picture, and I know you're going to think I'm a little kooky, but when I see this picture, I think of time management, because there's no way those little seedlings would grow if we didn't think about our time and we didn't plan what we wanted to plant and we didn't prune as we went along as well. So we're going to talk about organizing your garden. And I mentioned time management. So whatever kind of activity you love to do, whether it's gardening, knitting, dancing, etc., you have to make time for it. So, this particular quote, "We take care of the future best by taking care of the present now," is one of my favorite quotes. And I want to talk about time blocking, which I've mentioned quite a bit over the last year. So most of you know, if you've heard me speak before, that you have to set aside blocks of time or an amount of time when you want to get things done. So if you look at that laptop, you see different colors. So whether you want gardening to be a particular color for just this particular activity, or maybe gardening is part of your self-care, or gardening is part of your hobbies, whatever color you want to give it, the important part is to time block time in order to get it done. And gardening in particular can involve different seasons. You can do things at different months of the year. I have a sister-in-law who does so much planning in the winter relative to everything that's going to happen the following year. A lot of people like to keep annual records on what they grow, what they want to grow, how things did, how things didn't do. Some people actually like to create diagrams. Other people figure out a way to keep their care instructions, whether it's taking the tag off the plant when the plant is planted, doing bookmarks on different internet sites, whether you're paper or digital, it doesn't really matter. It's where are you going to keep the information safely, again, by paper filing or virtual filing, so that, if you bought a rose bush last year, you remember what you're supposed to do this year in order for that rose bush to be healthy, when you're going to take care of your annuals, your perennials, et cetera, et cetera. So time management is the first step, because if you want to have an organized garden and you want things to bloom at certain times of the year, and you want all of your, flora and fauna to be healthy, you have to figure out when you're going to take care of it, which would, of course, bring us to the possibility of making a to-do list. So, some people just want a few potted plants. Other people want their entire backyard and front yard done. So before you plan that trip to Rosler's Nursery or Home Depot or wherever your favorite place is to purchase items in order to get your garden to grow, you want to make a list of what it is you might need at these places. Do you need more seeds? Do you need plants? What kinds of annuals do you want to get? What kinds of perennials do you want to get? I'm going to tell you a quick, funny little story. I'll never forget this. It was one of the first times we had taken our kids to Disney World, and we were standing in the front of the Magic Kingdom, and my son was about 5 years old, and he had a really great handle on language, and he looked up at the prices on the menu board, if you will, and he looked at the annual price, and he looked at me for an annual pass, and he goes, "I don't understand, Mom, why we have to pay an annual price. Can't we just do this, perennially?" He said. I forget exactly how he used it, but he was trying to say, why can't I have a perennial pass? It was very adorable. Anyways, dirt, mulch would probably be on your list. What kind of fertilizers you like to use, plant food, thinking about if you're going to grow your garden, what kind of resources do you need? Where's the water going to be coming from? Are you going to use a watering can? Do you want to attach a hose to a spigot? And then thinking about the space where you're going to grow what you'd like to grow. If you're going to start things indoor, where are you going to store things? Do you need lighting? Do you need lighting inside if you're growing things before you're planting them under, heat lights, and then maybe spotlights when they get into full bloom back in your yard. And then if you also need containers and pots. So this is maybe just, a little list to whet your appetite when it comes to your garden. And probably when you're in the store, you'll see many more fun things that you want to add. So we talked about your time management, setting aside time to figure out what you want to grow, how you're going to grow it. And then most likely you're going to have an inventory maybe of what you already have at your home, but then there's going to be things each year that you're going to buy in order to, continue future gardens, if you will. So this is a really good time for me to go over my basic physical methodology of organizing space, which I call SSPOE, which stands for sort, select, purge, organize, and equalize. And the example I'm going to use is a shed here, because maybe you have an opportunity to repurpose a shed, or you have, a potting shed or part of your garage. But this would give you a home, if you will, for all of your garden supplies. If they're outside, you might have a little section of your garage or something inside, again, if you're very much into gardening. So let's pretend that here is our organizing example. We're going to do this shed, and we're going to sort, select, purge, organize, and equalize. And the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take everything out of this shed, and you're going to sort it into categories. So you're going to put, the pots together. You're going to put the hoses together, the fertilizers together, the tools together. That way you can see exactly how much you have, and the volume of each category, because you might find you've got hundreds of pots. You might not need hundreds of pots, but maybe depending on what you do, you need more pots. I don't know. But categorizing is your first step to the process in our SSPOE. And the second S is to be selective. So when it comes to your gardening, maybe you decided this year you're going to concentrate on vegetables. Maybe you became a vegan this year, and that's exactly what you want to grow. So you think about, say, you're sorting your vegetable seeds, and you're going to figure out, are these seeds fitting into my goal? Are any of them expired? If I don't want to grow cucumbers, maybe I can give away my cucumber seeds to my local garden club. I love to say, when in doubt, get it out. Over a year, have no fear. Is it a friend or an acquaintance? We want to keep our friends and let go of our acquaintances. And does it spark joy? So these are just some of the questions you can ask yourself in the selection process. So if I was to use, instead of, vegetable seeds as an example, maybe it's rakes. Maybe you've got, 11 different kinds of rakes. How many rakes do you need? And I can't answer that question. You have to answer it for yourself. All right, so that's select. So far we've done sort and we've done select. And when you do the sorting and the selecting, you have now made decisions. So once you make decisions, you can let go of the things that no longer fit in that space. So if we're doing a shed, and out of those 11 rakes, you decided to let 8 of them go, where are they going to go? So P is for purge. It doesn't necessarily mean garbage. It just means that the item is not staying in the space. So what kind of a decision are we going to give it relative to getting it out of the space? Is it going to be a belong elsewhere? Are we going to donate it? Are we going to give it away? I don't know, in this particular garden scenario, if we're going to sell, consign, or auction any
gardening tools, but who knows, maybe you've got a beautiful fountain you don't want anymore. Recycle is always a way to get rid of things, maybe depending on what material it's made out of. I know, I work for an eco-friendly furniture and junk removal company, and we are always trying to figure out new ways to recycle things, to rehome things, to repurpose things however best we can. Shred is another one. Not that you might have paper in your shed, but you might have many papers in your filing that you don't need anymore relative to going through your record keeping. And then, of course, there's always garbage and junk. And when you garden, there's probably hazmat material too. This is the time of year where a lot of our local counties are having their hazardous material days. They're having their tire recycling, their electronics, their paper shredding. So keep an eye on your county and your township for all these opportunities to dispose of things that are usually hard to dispose of, especially if you're in a shed, garage, attic situation right now. So you probably have fertilizers that are no longer needed or maybe expired. So that's P for purge. So once you've done the sorting, the selecting, and the purging, now's when you can truly and authentically put things away, give them a home, organize, put everything back in that shed, decide what's going to live where, give everything an address. So I thought this was a cute example of organize, because this person probably had a lot of garden tools that they weren't using anymore and was probably having a difficult time giving them up, and was very creative at recycling and decided to use them in an artistic way for their gate or their fence. So, but the bottom line is, now is when you're giving everything a final home. So that's your actual organize. And I mentioned giving everything a home because I did want to say one thing. When we don't give objects in our house, in our backyard, in our garage, in our shed, in our storage unit, whatever it is, if we don't give it a home, it doesn't have a place to live. And then that's kind of when people start calling it clutter. So, this poor little wheelbarrow is out on its own when hopefully it could have a spot in that shed. And then, of course, you have your very important tools, which you're going to be using every day in your garden. And you want to make sure that they have a prominent spot in the shed so you always know how to reach them. So that's giving everything a home. And then the last step in the process is the E. And I like to say equalize, enlist, eliminate, and enjoy. Because if we emptied the shed and we sorted everything based on our categories, and then we got rid of anything that wasn't going to go back into the shed, and then we gave everything a home, then we can finally deal with just maintenance, just keep everything in balance and harmony. So now everything has a home, but what's our system going to be? What are we going to do so that every time we walk into the shed, we know where, our shears are, and we know where the lawnmower is, or whatever it is. And equalize is that kind of discipline, balance, maintenance. We want to think about, who are we going to enlist to help us? Are we sharing the shed with other people? Is it just yourself that's into gardening, or is it the whole family? I mean, I know a lot of families that do a lot of gardening together. Maybe they have, bees together. So they do a lot of outside things, and you want to make sure who are the gatekeepers on keeping this shed and this garden inventory in balance. Eliminate means you get rid of things you don't need as you go. And if we've done our SSPOE correctly, you get to enjoy. Another example of equalizing and the E at the end of this organizing recipe would be, what's your system? And I love the acronym for system to be saving you space, time, energy, and money. So let's say you wanted to compost. What would your system be for composting? How does it start in the house? A majority, I forget the percentage, I had read this somewhere. It's a really high percentage of our garbage in America that's actually just food. So a lot of people to help that in terms of sustainability, they are composting. But that has to start inside, with the thought of I come in with my groceries, I prep my groceries, I do my cooking, and as I'm doing all this, let me be mindful of that, those leftover food items. Let me be mindful as I'm prepping my mise en place and I'm doing my, my celery, my onions, my carrots. What am I going to do with the scraps? Where are they going to go? And then how long are they going to stay in my house? Is there a method in my house? And then how does it get taken outside? And how does the dirt get turned, etc.? So what's your system in order to keep everything in order? So that's your SSPOE. And I have a couple more little seedlings of thoughts, especially when you're putting together your gardening inventory. Again, whether you use your garage or you have any kind of an outer building. FIFO actually comes for me from my corporate dining days, first in, first out. So whatever is oldest gets used first. But not just in terms of food, it can be the same thing in terms of, seeds and plants and those kind of items. Keeping labels and tags is really important. I know for me, my last house, we had, 300 feet of backyard before it ended at the Ramapo River. And from year to year, if I didn't keep those tags, I wouldn't remember what it was I planted, because some of the things survived and some of the things did not survive. So labels and tags were important to me. Sharpies, writing things on the outside of, whether it's a fertilized bag or seeds or chemicals in terms of, expiration dates, that kind of thing. So Sharpies came in handy. Containers are really handy, especially if you're in a situation where you don't have, it's not climate controlled, or maybe water can get inside and little furry friends can get inside. So you might need containers to help keep soil and pests out. You want to think about heavy versus light, heavy stuff on the bottom, light on top, easy in, easy out for the things you're using all the time. You want to go vertical with your space, try to use as much of the, height as you can. Think about whether or not you do have to waterproof something. And, do you need a utility? Again, depending on how much you're doing and your goals for your space, do you need water? Do you need heat? Do you need light? So these are some other things to think of in your gardening organization. And that is the little end of our slideshow. I'm almost ready to open it up to Q&A. But before I do that, I just want to I just wanted to mention that hopefully when you take these Zoom calls, you learn something and you think about what's my next step. If you had any kind of action step whatsoever here, maybe I put a little nugget in, oh, you know what? I always go to, Lowe's right around Mother's Day to get everything ready. And this year, I'm going to go with a list. That's a good idea. Or this year, in the wintertime, I'm going to plan out my diagram of what I want to grow. So for every minute of organizing, an hour is earned. That's from our friend, Ben Franklin. For next month, for the third Wednesday, our Zoom Lunch and Learn will be organizing for weight loss just in time for summer. And I have a wonderful, wonderful colleague named Deborah Gussoff. She's also a certified professional organizer, and she wrote a very cool book that she's going to tell us about and give us her tips, tricks, and strategies from her book, which is on Amazon, and it's called Organizing for Weight Loss, a slim little guide to getting thinner. So that's in time for summer. I don't have the information up. It'll be up soon, but in June, on June 21st, I'll have another guest speaker. Her name is Kristen Canty, and she is an attorney, and she specializes in elder law and all kinds of trusts and estates. And she's going to talk to us about having that conversation before you go away on a trip and getting all of your vital documents in order. So look for that in June. And I think we're just about ready for Q&A. So last slide, this is how to find me. Phone number is best, but please feel free to reach out to me by email. I am daily on the gmarie.heron@junkluggers.com and the JM at possepartnersllc.com. I'm on a little less frequently because I'm with Junk Luggers all week and I do a little bit of organizing on the weekends. So if you need any friendly junk removal, please let me know, or any organizing. And if you're not on our monthly e-zine, send me an email and I'll get you on our monthly e-zine, and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I have a confession to make. Deborah, my assistant who's on this call, does a lot of my social media because I'm not very good at social media. Okay, so Deborah, do we have any questions? You're on mute.
I don't see any in the chat yet, but if they want to unmute, they can to ask.
Okay, so I'm going to stop share. All right. Oh, hello, people. It's so nice to see people. I couldn't see people. I can see people now. Hi, Doreen. Hi, Rita. Hi, Brian. Brian, do you want to? Oh, okay. I'm going to tell you all in a second who Brian is. He says use old seeds first, plant double and thin after they sprout. Brian, are you able to unmute? There you are. You're in a call.
There I am.
Okay.
Hey,
So I'm going to actually give the microphone over to Brian for a few minutes. I've known Brian now for a little over a year, and he's very, very special when it comes to the tree world. He works for, I'm going to let him describe himself, but whenever I have a professional question with anything outside of a house, I go to Brian. So go ahead, Brian, tell everybody who you are.
Hi, Jean Marie. Good afternoon, everybody. I can't see everybody in speaker view, so I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Brian Brunch. I do work for a company. We're a tree shrub and lawn care company locally here, and I am a certified arborist. I have my master's degree in forestry. I am a licensed arborist under the state of New Jersey. I love trees. I love green things. I've been planting things since I was like 6. Growing up, gardening, treeing. I used to manage greenhouses for a federal facility. So I am a green person. I am not the person you want to call if you ever have a trivia question about something from a 1995 movie. I'm not going to give you a good answer. I don't get out much. I love trees. So if anybody ever has a question about trees, shrubs, lawn, anything green, you can reach out through. I'm not here to promote my company. I'm just here kind of listening in and giving a little bit of advice. And when it comes to gardening and using up old stock, first of all, if you have old chemicals, like old pesticides, stuff like that, you definitely want to get rid of those through an environmental disposal day. Do not just pour them out on the ground or anything like that. There's a lot of the pesticides they used to use many years ago or stay in the environment a very long time. The other thing is that a lot of the old pesticides, after a period of time, they'll start to convert over to other molecules. So what might have been a legal, okay to use pesticide when it was made, and when it reaches expiration point, it can actually start to degrade and become poisonous to your plants. So if you're using something really like something ancient technology, obviously that's very stable and causes cancer. But like some of the newer stuff, after they degrade, they convert over to other organic compounds, and sometimes that can actually be toxic to your plants. The other thing is seeds. If you have old seeds, just plant them in doubles. What's the worst that can happen? You have 2 come up, you thin them. Seeds will survive for a very, very, very long time past their expiration date. So just use them. And if you get 2 plants come up, just thin them out.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. So I have the privilege of seeing Brian once a week. He's in my BNI group, and every week I learn something new relative to being outside. Either the name, I learned what diseases certain trees are having. I learned about lantern spotted. What are those? Oh gosh, Brian's going to kill me. Spotted lantern flies. Those horrible things that are everywhere. But it's a lot of fun, and every time I see a picture of something I like, if I take a picture and I send it to him, within seconds, he texts me back and he tells me exactly what it is. He's like that Seek app, only faster. So thanks for jumping in there, Brian.
Can I ask Brian a question?
Yeah.
I love the bunnies that come into my backyard, but they love my tulips. Is there anything I can treat my tulips or a couple other plants the bunnies chew up?
Well, as long as they're not edible plants, yes. There are repellents out there that are actually labeled for rabbits.
For rabbits?
Rabbits are tough though, because they have very, very small taste buds. They have big teeth. No, they do. They have, so they don't taste as well as like deer and stuff like that. So you have to use something that's labeled for them. My wife and I like to use the smoke. It's I'm sorry, it's a chain, but we do buy it at Lowe's. I think it's Repels All. The Repels All granules, I think, are labeled for rabbit.
Okay.
We do use them as a cat repellent as well.
Oh,
But make sure you don't put them too close to the tulips, because they do have pepper in them, and it can actually burn the leaves.
okay. So I'll follow the directions on the container.
Yep.
Thank you.
No problem.
Wow, that was a good question. So I have a funny organizing story. This was years ago. I had a client and I was in Tuxedo, New York. She had a beautiful yard, and we were organizing her garage, and I uncovered something, and it was the worst smell in the world. I'd never smelled anything like that. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, what is this? And she goes, oh, that's coyote urine. And I said, what? She said, that's coyote urine. And I said, okay, what's it for? And she goes, gee, Marie, it's for the deer. I'm like, oh, okay. So Brian, I don't know if you ever heard of that, or that was, that's, normal information, but I'd never thought of that.
No, coyote urine will work at times for the deer. The problem is that the deer get used to it. We do deer repellents as well, and if anybody has like an hour, we can have a chat about that. But deer repellents are very, very picky. The deer get used to the repellent. It doesn't matter what kind of repellent it is, they do get used to it after a period of time, and you have to rotate. Even if it's urine, it doesn't matter what it is.
Wow.
When I was much younger, I worked out in British Columbia, and we actually did deer repellent studies and all that sort of thing. And basically the conclusive evidence is that everything will work for a period of time, then it won't. There's actually a system in place where you end up rotating repellents and all sorts of things. So that's a huge discussion, but the deer are definitely a problem. Obviously, organizing your garden and putting up a physical fence, is the number one solution. Keep in mind, you can't put taste repellents on vegetables. If you put a hot pepper or a coyote urine or a rotten egg taste repellent on your vegetables, your tomatoes will no longer taste like tomatoes.
Oh.
So you got to make the best thing to do is organize your garden, select an area for whatever you're going to do, shade gardening, sun gardening, whatever. And physical barriers are the absolute best deer repellent. If all else fails, then you got to do something else, but that's the best.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for being my guest speaker today.
Just here to help. That's all. I'm not trying to run over anybody.
Oh, no, that's okay. Does anybody else have any other questions? We're almost at the end. All right. I'm thinking everybody's good. And anybody who is listening to this on the recording, I hope you have a wonderful month. And on the recording or off the recording, we'll see you all on May 17th. Hopefully, if you're interested, for organizing for weight loss just in time for summer. Take care, everybody.
Remember, if you want to see more videos on my organizing, productivity, and decluttering topics, hit the subscribe button and you'll be alerted when the next one is ready.